Oh, look at this, a sit-down. We've not done this in a while, have we? Now I'm gonna let you know, this is pretty much gonna be an opinion piece, but it's gonna cover something I really think needs to be. Whenever you start looking into Cyberpunk Red, especially coming from Dungeons & Dragons, one of the main things people will lead with is that it is much more dangerous than D&D. And usually, if you ask a bit more, you'll also hear that Red is not as dangerous as Cyberpunk 2020, the formal rule set edition. Both of these things I heard when I was starting out, and to be honest, I didn't get it. It did give me this feeling of being very cautious in the game, but I really had no comparison for it. And since I take the role of GM more than a player, it made me nervous to run for a while there too. Baseless as it was, I did not want to just send a bunch of new players into a first session TPK. That'd put them off, it'd feel horrible to me, and I'd feel like I messed up. So, not having that comparison held me back at the beginning for sure. The thing is, when you don't really have a comparison, you can't really see for yourself without playing it yourself sometimes. That's the whole point of this video though. I don't really want the Cyberpunk Red is much more dangerous than D&D line to be where most people's curiosity ends. It almost ended mine, after all. I'm going to tell you two stories, both straight from my own game with my own crew. They will directly show you what dangerous really means in this game. I think it'll give you the comparison you're looking for when you're trying to figure out, hey, do I really want to try and do something long form in this game? And of course, to get it out of the way first, from the viewpoint of taking damage in D&D 5th edition, it is as simple as it always was. Beat the AC, deal your damage, continue on. Most don't think twice about there being any penalties or consequence to critical hits other than extra damage. Some DMs do have their own ways and add in stuff like tables for crit hits and crit fumbles, but for the base game, rules as written, that's really it. Cover also is just simply a you can't hit me or see me, or a boost to your AC, advantage, disadvantage, not much to it. So, as a baseline for those looking into Red from D&D, know that I know where you're coming from. XDM, did it for years, yada yada. Let's get to the examples. So, first story. This one takes place about a month ago now. My crew was heading from a night market in the north part of Night City down to a diner they knew to meet up with a fixer. I had rolled up a random encounter, was just a group of gang members with some extra chrome. Basic mooks. Absolutely the definition of a group of trash mobs. But it was going to be fun, as they had not had a chance to show off some of their new toys because they really did just come from a night market, so when the van they were in got stopped, they were itching to go. Now the main character of this tale is West, a lawman in the crew. She pops out of the right passenger side sliding door and has her heavy pistol in hand, and steps out into two of the mooks who are already taking aim at her. Both fire, miss, and in the next round she puts a round into each of them equally. These guys are also only packing heavy pistols and fire back. The first hits, but can't deal enough damage to get through her light armor jack. The next one fires, and this one random gonk manages to roll a 6 on 2 of the dice. A heavy pistol, for those who don't know, only rolls 3 damage dice, and 2 of them came up 6. The other dice was just a 1, which in this case was lucky. So she sets up to take the critical hit, which wound up to only being a total of 7 damage if I remember right, due to the bonus that happens when you crit. We all brush it off as a, ouch, well, lucky shot. I told her to roll her critical injury, which is another part of a crit hit in the base rules of Cyberpunk Red. Everyone was just chatting and having a laugh, until she rolled that 3 total on the dice that she had to throw. Everyone basically just went silent because that was a dismembered hand injury. In one fell swoop, a random ganger had gotten a lucky shot and taken off her right hand. A simple, easy encounter had just went from a good time with some explosions to, oh no. She snatches up her heavy pistol, fires back on the 2 still on her, and manages to take both of them down one-handed. But in that instance, everyone at the table caught on, wow, it can happen that fast. She wasn't below half HP. She hadn't been hit by some crazy explosion. A lucky bullet to the wrist was enough to blow off her entire right hand in a blink. That was the first time I think any of my crew realized how lucky they'd been in the weeks we've been playing. No one had gotten that seriously hurt yet. None of the crit hits got that bad. There had been some very, very low health, but it never had that kind of consequence that fast from someone who was perfectly fine seconds before. Sounds scary, right? At any moment you can lose a hand or an arm, and it gets worse when you go into head critical injuries when someone's lucky enough to hit one. Don't go running for the hills yet though. There's another side to the coin that is this whole dangerous view for Cyberpunk Red. And while that does seem like a horror story you just heard, wait for this one. Last session with my crew, They're coming up to the finale of the current arc we've been running. To avoid making it a super long story, they find that a box truck that had been backed up into a warehouse is hiding a chromed-up NCPD officer with a vendetta against their medtech, Ukulele. It's justifiable, Ukulele did set his head on fire. But that's a long backstory, we're skipping that too. Yuki, in his infinite curiosity, manages to get into the cab of said box truck and start it up. He drives it forward, ripping the truck from the wall. And then said chrome junkie leaps out of the back, Yuki guns it in reverse to try and run him over. The cop jumps up on top of the box truck and just walks forward. He lets a pop-up grenade launcher out and lets it do its work, firing an AP grenade down at the cab that has Yuki inside of it. Yuki's one lifeline in all of this was the roof of this truck's cab. The dice fly, and the damage that's rolled is one damage short of completely destroying the cab's roof. Everybody basically throws a fit in relief, and Ukulele just avoids taking the full brunt of the explosion and has enough time to absolutely get the hell away from this big dude. To explain what happened here, cover in red doesn't work like some invincible shield between you and danger. All cover has hit points, and if dropped to 0, the cover is useless. Only difference is, with explosions like grenades, if an explosion drops a piece of cover to 0, anything on the other side of that cover is hit with the full, unmitigated damage. Yuki was basically going to lose over half of his hit points if it wasn't for that one single point of damage just being not enough. A boogaloo and a panic later, the fight goes their way, and they wind up taking down the corruption ring that had been focusing on them. Yuki survived, despite this cop wanting his head. Same can't be said though about his other backup officers who had been hidden in cars next to that box truck. Smoke rained grenades down from the building roof on top of them, and what could have happened to Ukulele happened to them. It was a mess, a wonderful mess, and I am one proud GM and friend. It was chaotic, it was great. So, why did these two stories matter to me in explaining the danger in Red? Well, because it's not just all about assault rifles will chew you apart in one round, rather than it being 1 point of damage can make or break a situation. 7 points of damage cost West her hand, but 1 point of cover not being damaged enough saved Yuki's entire, body. Cyberpunk Red's danger is not all about how big the guns are you're facing, or how many people you're getting swarmed by from your GM. To me, the danger of Cyberpunk Red's system is what can happen in the small bits of damage that can flip an encounter in some pretty crazy ways. Sure, give a gonk a rocket launcher and some grenades and you'll wipe out a whole team, but that to me isn't actually dangerous, as weird as it sounds. A player having been at risk of losing their entire arm if she'd roll just one less on a die, that's dangerous, especially for only 7 damage. Cause then you got these moments where a grenade doesn't cut it, and the players know it, and they know how lucky they are, and the relief hits, and that's when the boss music really starts playing as they unload into the baddie. The danger in Cyberpunk Red is not written in the rules for GMs to completely overwhelm you with completely unstoppable odds and just annihilate your team and laugh at you. No. It comes down to the minute things. That's the real fun in the danger, at least to me and the crew I play with. Remember, no table is the same and each GM is different, but that's my definition on why Cyberpunk Red is dangerous. Take care, everyone, and I hope you find yourselves a good table.